Bienvenidos a Disrupt Everything, podcast series by Isra García. Reinvéntate a ti mismo y cambia lo que más te importa.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here in a new episode of Disrupt Everything podcast series. This time also in English because today we have an international speaker in this podcast. We have an international guest, really friend of mine, a guy who is his life is worth telling, worth knowing. So this is why he's here in this podcast, because he has a really intense nomad life. But what I've been known recently is his hectic biography and then how he created some impact in the world. Today I have with me Julian Davis. Julian, welcome to Disrupt Everything podcast series.
Thank you so much, Isra. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I feel very welcomed. Thank you.
It's been almost 4 years. I think I met Julian in 2014 in my first Burning Man experience by chance when I got to San Francisco. Something, I think when you meet people like Julian, something changed in you, because I came there, I was, like a complete unknown, and they just told me, hey, stay in our house. I know it's just so because I have my friend Edward, but I realized that talking with Julian, because we are now in Padua in Italy, he didn't know Julian until then. So who is Julian Davis? Julian Davis is graduated magna cum laude on UCA Hastings College of the Law, if I say right, where he served on the editorial staff of the Hastings Law Journal. He holds a bachelor and master's degree in philosophy from Brown University. Also, Julian is a member of the State Bar of California, that I will ask you for later for this. And he provides general counsel legal services to small businesses, startups, and nonprofits, specializing in corporate formation, intellectual property, and private finance. Julian is a former business development executive director assisting entrepreneurs in San Francisco and in other areas. Julian has received numerous awards for community service, including the San Francisco Bay Guardian Local Hero Award. Julian, you might say, he is like a 9-to-5 worker, really involved in the San Francisco scene. Listen this, Julian has a law office, like a boutique business law firm. He provides concierge general counsel legal services to a wide variety of small and medium-sized businesses, startups, nonprofits. He provides a full spectrum of services, legal services for clients, including, as I would say, corporate formation, structure, private finance, intellectual property, litigation, contracts, compliance, and many more. But here comes the interesting thing. Julian has a really vivid and intense nomad or digital nomad life. So even he works in a really obsolete, or let's call it like old-fashioned, I think is better, industry. He just made his own. He made it count, and he created his life. He developed his own lifestyle. And Julian, first of all, congratulations for doing that, which is not easy. And how did you get started? I mean, what was first the most important moments in your life that get you here?
Well, first of all, let me thank you again for having me on your podcast. And I just remembered fondly when we first met. I was also really blown away and impressed by your spirit and your energy, because while most people were figuring out how to drive the 6 hours into the desert, you were biking from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe, swimming across Lake Tahoe, and then running the rest of the way out to Black Rock City. And I remember when you arrived, it was a moment of intense joy and jubilation, and you came and collapsed into camp, and I'll never forget that. It was absolutely a pleasure to host you.
My pleasure too.
And thank you again. And so it's always good to reconnect with you. You sort of remarked that I've taken a sort of traditional profession and kind of transformed it, and I think that's right. You see a lot of folks in the digital nomad world are living a lifestyle of remote working and things like that, who are also forging new professions, new consultancies, lifestyle businesses, a lot of whom actually I work with are clients of mine who are doing this kind of stuff, entrepreneurs who are sort of forging into new industry areas that are opened up by the internet, etc. But when it comes down to it, really, the internet, I see itself is the enabler of this new lifestyle that we have, and I've taken a traditional profession, providing legal services, but realize that it doesn't have to always be practiced in the same way. And especially with the type of legal services that I work with. I work with entrepreneurs, mainly in California, but I have clients in other parts of the world as well. And we can connect on the internet. We can connect over Skype. We can connect over email or over the telephone. And the idea that you need to be having an in-person meeting in a stodgy conference room with a pot of coffee is kind of old-fashioned, right? People can connect now with the internet in so many different ways and communicate. So that's been the tool that has enabled me really to live a remote working type of lifestyle. And I think the internet is full of these kinds of possibilities for new lifestyles.
And how did you get started? I mean, and what's the highlights of your life? What's your story? Because it's so interesting to me, like knowing your background, your like little obsession for philosophy, art, then law, but at the same time, like mixing it up with the new economy. How Julian started from the scratch? I mean, like early childhood, and what were the highlights of you? The eureka moments, the epiphanies.
Well, my life has gone through various phases. You're right to point out some interest in philosophy and the arts, and my early academic life was very much connected with those things, and I still carry that with me. My interest in literature and philosophy and the arts. When I got out of school, I started working on a PhD program as well in philosophy, but I found that at that moment in my life, academic philosophy and, let's just say, the ivory tower wasn't where I was meant to be at that moment in time. I was living in San Francisco. There was a lot happening in the streets of the central neighborhoods of San Francisco, where I saw, intense wealth inequality. I saw intense underprivileged communities dealing with violence, dealing with poverty. And I felt I wanted to be involved in being a part of a solution for inner city communities and in San Francisco in particular. So I got involved in community organizing work. And I spent actually a long time not traveling. I had a lot of friends who would, get back from Bali or from, Australia, exotic locations around the world. And I would always think to myself, oh, that's interesting. I'd love to travel someday. But I was really focused on my work in San Francisco. And over the years, I was working with I was telling you earlier today, with the Booker T. Washington Community Service Center in San Francisco, where I served as the board president for a long time. And we were just able, after a long effort of
10 years,
to at least of planning, strategic planning, and and development to build a new community center, a state-of-the-art center with 50 units of housing, affordable housing, half of which are dedicated for emancipated foster youth who are coming out of the foster care system in California and who often become homeless. So there's a huge need for this population. Childcare, youth multimedia lab. I mean, it's really a multi-service facility that we were just finally broke ground and opened last October.
Congratulations.
And thank you. I welcome you next time you come to San Francisco to come check out the new center. We'd love to have you there. And so I still serve on the board there. At a certain point, I went back to law school, and I got a law degree, and I was still involved in political activism and community organizing, but then got out of that space and sort of reimagined a different life. And about 5 years ago, I remember thinking about the possibility of traveling more and of leading a different kind of lifestyle. And I sort of dreamt that life, and then in about 5 years ago started living that dream. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. I mean, if you can really dream a life that would be interesting and meaningful and fulfilling, and then it's within your fingertips to put a plan in place to make that happen. And I remember specifically visiting a friend in Panama. This was, I think, New Year's 4 or 5 years ago, and talking about this vision with him. And I was there, and I said, well, I got to get back to San Francisco, got to get back to work. And I remember him saying, why? We got an internet connection right here. Why don't you just stay a couple more weeks? And I had that sort of epiphany moment that really I didn't need to get on a plane back to San Francisco. So I ended up staying in the jungle in Panama and working from there for a few more weeks. And from there I realized with the tools that we have now, it's really not necessary to have an in-person meeting per se. Most of my clients I meet with over the phone, I meet with in person. So I started a sort of new chapter of hanging a shingle and working as a lawyer. It's also, I think, rare to kind of just start your own practice out of law school, but I had a wealth of experience from doing community organizing work and working in state and local government, and so I had a sort of a network. So I guess I sort of lucked out in that regard. So I was able to sort of, as they say, hang a shingle and start my practice that way, but do so sort of working from home and then working on the road. So.
And then you start working on the road 5 years ago, and you start like using tools that get you to make your work easy and connect with the clients. Nowadays, what are the top 3 tools you use for your work?
You mean internet? I guess I've said that already, but that's sort of broad. I mean, I communicate with my clients over email. The type of law I practice is a lot of document production type stuff. So I work on corporate formation and structure with clients. I work on contracts. I even work on dispute resolution and litigation through my firm. But of course, no firm is successful without a team. And so I'm not just a one-man shop. I have a team of lawyers I work with, a partner, and then a number of other co-counsels that we work with on specialty areas. So we're able to quarterback any legal need that comes up in the service with regard to business law services for our clients. So having a team, obviously the tools of the internet, but having a dedicated team that has specialty and expertise in the areas that we cover and that we need to be able to deliver for our clients is key. And then I found that there are some tools such as Skype and some of these internet applications, internet calling and things like that if you're in strange areas and you don't have I actually have a great T-Mobile plan myself as well, which is they have a fantastic coverage in different international locations, so that's been great. But tools like Skype allow you to connect with people over the internet for phone calls, etc., and has made it really easy to connect. The most challenging thing I found to overcome has been the time difference in different parts of the world. But the most challenging was in Asia. Actually, I was traveling.
Because it's at the other side.
It's 16 hours from California at times, 12 to 16 hours. So it was really kind of upside down. But
How did you did you manage?
I managed fine, but it was, for instance, 3 months. My future wife and I were traveling through, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, China, Western Australia, and then eventually in India and Malaysia. I mean, we were all over on the other side of the world, and it was a challenge. But you pay attention to the time zones, and I really schedule my culture as if I'm working 9 to 5 in California, and so it means I may have strange hours on the other side of the world. I still get to spend time in Bangkok, but I have a strange schedule, for instance.
What was a typical day, a typical job work day in Asia while you were working in San Francisco time?
Well, the most challenging was, I have to say, was China, because also a lot of these internet applications that I've been telling you about, which have been so crucial to me being able to live this digital nomad lifestyle, didn't necessarily work. So, but you could make them work, but you had to have a VPN, for instance. So you get a VPN, and then once you've got your VPN running, then hopefully you're going to be able to get with the Gmail to check your Gmail, and usually it did work. You'd have to find a solid internet connection. So, it takes, sometimes it's not you're not just, a lot of people too, when you live as a digital nomad and you're working, you're not living a tourist life. So
not at all.
You're still working, and so it just adds actually a little bit more work to your work, because now you have to work to figure out how to just get online to be able to have the call and to be able to.
You have to figure out how to do your work.
And sometimes it's a matrix type scenario. You're running around trying to find a hotel that's going to be able to have the right internet connection, and then hope your VPN and get your VPN working. And then in China, it was and the language barriers in China were huge compared to other parts of the world as well. And so, but you find a way, and you find a way to make sure. And I spend, a lot of time making sure that planning to make sure that I'm available for my clients on 9 to 5 Pacific Standard Time in California. And so in some parts of the world, that's easier to do than others. Here in Italy, it's actually just pushes everything back about 9 hours. So I have, late nights. And then
I was going to ask you this.
We
are now in Italy.
Yeah.
I came to Padova to visit Julia's fiancé, and also Julian. They were here, and I was doing a trip, and now I'm seeing the Julian lifestyle, and also. Can you tell us that your day today in Italy? How you work day by day here? What's your schedule?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure how interesting this is for your listeners, but
it changes from what you had in Asia.
It is, very much so. So in Italy, so it's about 9 hours ahead of California. So 6 p.m. Is 9 a.m. So actually, I wake up late because I stay up late, but I enjoy a large part of the early part of the day, the lunch and early afternoon, before my California clients are even awake. And so later, by about after 6 p.m., I can start connecting with folks for phone calls or emails. I'll break for dinner, which is sort of like a lunch break. And then after dinner, I'll be up working again online and with clients. And then, I end up staying up quite late, maybe until,
4 or 5
in the morning. And then, start the whole thing over again around noon. So it's an interesting way you start to experience, again, your environment here. There's a lot of beautiful things to see in Italy as well, but I'm not here as a tourist. But I get to still experience basically walking out the front door of my home office and finding, a spritz and some prosciutto and pecorino. And it's a different environment than when I walk out of my front door in San Francisco. So
it takes commitment, and also it takes responsibility, because as you said, you are not here as a tourist, and you'll never be, because you'll always be working, but it lets you live the life you want to live.
And I actually really love living a local's life when I travel in any case, and whenever I travel, I like to understand what does it feel like to be a local, and not just arrive there as a sort of voyeur or as as a tourist in any case. So I find that the digital nomad life actually puts you in a context of figuring out, okay, how am I going to work in this environment? Where's the local grocery store? You find times to do fun things just like you do at home, but you figure out what the local's life is like. Where's the local market? Where's the local restaurant?
And what's the most crucial? What's the crucial things you think you need for a nomad life?
It's a good question. I mean, I really think where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, if it's something that you want, it's something you can create. I mean, human beings have such an intense and beautiful capacity for imagination and creative capacity, and it's really tapping into that because obviously there's a lot of modes of living, modes of work, types of professions, etc. that are traditional and that feel like maybe it's the only option or that's what people feel pressured to drop into. But trust me, there's the tools out there to envision an alternate lifestyle if that's what you're interested in doing, and then really if you have the will to do that and to just follow your impulses and your creativity and your drive in that direction, you can make it happen.
And inside of the nomad life, digital nomad life you're living, what's the thing that has surprised you the most?
It's a good question. It's a thing that has surprised me the most. I mean, maybe that it was doable. Again, having that faith in the fact that it's doable. It takes a bit of a leap of faith, right? There's a lot of sort of inertia and pressure in society to sort of stay put, get something done. But I think discipline and faith both have been good. It takes discipline too. I mean, not just, I should go back to, it's not just the willpower and the idea, but it's also the discipline. And as a lawyer, you learn discipline. You learn that as in law school and
in a hard way,
and passing the bar exam and such. So those were actually very useful tools as well.
I think discipline is the number one core skill.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. And what's been so far your toughest challenge? What's been so far?
That's a good question.
And how
you mean in life or with the digital nomad and
life
work?
Or digital nomad?
Toughest challenge. I think honestly in life our toughest challenges are overcoming our own failures, and having the will to go on. I mean, I've experienced failures in my life. We've all experienced failures, bumps in the roads and things like that. But I think if you're still standing, that's a success in itself. And a lot of people, I think, you give yourself credit for being alive, feeling blessed and grateful for the experience you have, because you can't thrive without first surviving. And many have perished, and you're still here. So if you're listening to this podcast, for instance, right now, you have access to technology, probably have access to running water, things that we take for granted, but which so much of the world don't even have. So we're standing on the shoulders of those who've come before us, and we reach obstacles, we have failures, we pick ourselves back up, and we continue. And so I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but
what's been your biggest failure?
I don't know.
Oh, once you say like
there, I was involved in. I've had many starts to my career and it's gone in different directions. I was involved in politics at one point in San Francisco. Ran for public office. Didn't make it. Had to pick myself up, dust myself off, and sort of imagine a different direction. And that's actually when I started off into this direction here. And so, really, life can throw you obstacles, can frustrate your expectations, purposes, wants, desires, but at the end of the day, there's always, the endless possibilities, really, to recreate yourself and to recreate, a lifestyle
And what's the thing,
of your choosing.
on the contrary, what's the thing of you feel more proud of?
We were talking earlier today about the Booker T. Washington Community Service Center, and I really feel happy about the work we were able to accomplish there with building that new center. That it's now going to be a center for emancipated foster youth with on-site support services for a vulnerable population. It's a new facility that's really able to serve the community in a way we never were able to with the old building that we had. And so I feel really I feel proud of the work that was done. It was a complete group effort. I was president of the board there for a long time while we were doing this and making it happen, but I have to really applaud our executive director and our other board members as well. And as a team, we really galvanized community support. Not everybody was supportive of the idea. I mean, the idea of building housing for foster youth, you'd think it's something that's a no-brainer that everybody's going to get behind, and then you find out there's people who live next door or in the neighborhood or who just decide that for whatever reason that it's more important where if they're going to be able to get a parking spot when they come back from the grocery store, or they'd rather have a park than a community center. And so you have to overcome some of this stuff, but we did. And at the end of the day, that spirit of organizing and of bringing the community together for a greater purpose and being able to leave a legacy of this center is something that certainly I look back on with some pride.
Certainly. And what's the learnings you take from an experience of trying to build this center in 10 years? What would you say was the biggest learning you take from this?
Perseverance, man. Yeah, persistence and perseverance. Really, I mean, to see something through. Discipline. We've talked about that already.
So
but
important.
Perseverance and persistence, really, it pays off.
And then you get you start your normal life. You start traveling. You have this epiphany in Panama. You get there, and what's been so far your journey? I mean, where you've been jumping on?
I've met an amazing community of people from all over the world, including yourself, over the years. In California, folks who come and visit from all over, from Spain, from Japan, and my home has always been a place where I love to receive guests. And so, over the years, the beautiful community of souls and San Francisco, and then our broader community of folks who live in different parts of the world have been coming through, and oftentimes, staying in my home. And then when I travel to other parts of the world, I find doors open for me if I'm traveling around Panama or Japan, or I go to Spain or to different areas. So I think there's something more to the share economy than to apps, and to whether it's a ride sharing app. That to me the true share economy is people sharing one-to-one and sharing their resources and their space with each other, and that's been a beautiful experience, because again, it allows you to be able to really experience life as a local, to be able to go and stay in the home of a friend halfway across the world, and then a year later have that friend come and stay in your home. You realize that's the true share economy. And
imagine that I want to start living your life, because I know a lot of people that it's called nomads. Like knowledge, nomads. I saw this interesting terminology, it's like a trend. What would you say with your experience, 5 years, embracing digital nomad life, lifestyle? I would say, what would you say to anyone that wants to start? So imagine that I want to start to live the nomad life in this digital world, and I have a law firm, I have a consulting services, or even I work 9 to 5. So where should I start?
Where should you start in terms of trying to break out of the office cubicle and live a different type of lifestyle?
That's it.
Yeah, it depends on what type of service you're offering too, and what your vision is for what kind of work you want to provide. But like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean recreating a new or creating a completely new profession. I took a traditional profession and found a way to just deliver it in a different way. And so you can be creative about how you go about those things. I mean, if you're, let's think of some different possibilities. I mean, if you're working 9 to 5 at a management consulting firm, providing consulting services is not something that you need to be tied into an office on a day-to-day basis to be able to do. In fact, my future wife, Julia, did this a few years back. She was working as a management consultant, and she was working at a firm, and then decided she wanted to live a different lifestyle and created her own consultancy. And so it's taking the value that you're offering, the value proposition that you have for your clients or for the world, and realizing that you can supply that and deliver it in a different kind of way, using different tools. You know, maybe you don't have an office full of employees, but you're able to break out and work with independent contractors, and sometimes in different parts of the world, to be able to have your team to deliver the service or product that you have for your clientele in a different way.
But you need trust from your clients, because you know you're gonna get away. And how did you get this trust? And how do you get this trust from customers? Because they know that you're gonna go away. You don't have to fail. But how do you get this trust from them? And how do you get other customers on board?
Trust is built through relationships and through, delivering services for people and quality services.
Meeting spec.
Most of my clients have come to me as referrals from other clients. I've actually never marketed my services or advertised my services. That's another thing as well. And in a way, I feel blessed and I feel lucky. At the same time, when you deliver for people and you make sure that you're giving a quality product, then your absolutely best marketing
is the best marketing possible.
Is a good referral. So how do you build trust? How do you build relationships? I think it's really just, focusing on quality and being able to deliver for folks, and then people will appreciate that, and it'll only have network effects from there.
And how do you do it for building relationships when you are having a nomad life? Do you build a relationship with people maybe you met in another country and then become your clients?
That happens.
Really?
That does happen.
So anyone listening to this podcast, you might have a new service law. So I'll give you Julian contact when we finish. I'll make sure.
And feel free to reach out. I work with entrepreneurs of all stripes and different kinds of businesses, people who are in nonprofit and for-profit sector, people with lifestyle businesses, people with startups, people with a wide range of different types of businesses. But yeah, I've traveled, for instance, I made a trip to Iceland a few years ago. Ended up working with some Icelandic guys after having been introduced and meeting some folks in Iceland. And I do have clients in different parts of the world. I've had some clients in Argentina, Iceland, France, and most of my clients are in California for sure. But I've had, especially through traveling, I ended up meeting people from different parts of the world who needed legal services in the United States. And because I come from California and from Silicon Valley, and the whole ecosystem of Silicon Valley is one that a lot of people in the world are interested in, and
appealing.
And even you have foreign entrepreneurs who want to do business in the States, and they want they want to be able to operate or raise money in the United States. Then having an entity in the United States can be important. A lot of people, you've heard this a billion times, but they'll choose Delaware in the United States as a jurisdiction for doing business, and because there's a certain format that people are familiar with, investors, etc., familiar with. And so I think as well, the fact that I'm sort of a California lawyer and a Silicon Valley based lawyer is a sort of appeal for folks outside who are interested in that ecosystem and connecting to that world. So I can kind of be a bridge for folks in different parts of the world to Silicon Valley as well.
Oh, so what's the best thing, Julian, of having the life you have, like nomad lifestyle? What's the best part for anyone and for you?
The best part, flexibility and freedom and ownership of your own time is, I think, really what's been the
Or
best
what,
part of it.
what's not the best part? What's the worst?
What's
Or
the
not?
worst part?
Or let's look it that other way. What's the not as good part?
The not as good part. Well, again, there's some challenging time zones, I'll say, and there's some challenging, that's probably the most difficult part. If you and it's not even that, that such of a terrible thing, but maybe you're just about to, enjoy an aperitivo or something because it's 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. in Europe, but you've got a call to make. I call it extreme remote working. I've had this a few times where you're excuse yourself from the table and you're on a call.
It's going to be
or
crazy,
you're,
like the other day.
Yeah, I've had some extreme remote working experiences that have just been fun. Walking with some friends through in Mexico City. Excuse me, guys, sit down. Oh, why not? I'll get my shoes shined. I'll take a business call, and you're doing business on the on the street in Mexico City. Yeah, so it's like juggling a little bit. Sometimes I call it extreme remote working, and you get good at trying to figure out how to deal with the the challenges that come with being in different time zones. But you find a way. Yeah.
What's you've been living in a lot of places. You've been trying a lot of things. So now, up until there, what's the item or the stuff or the thing that most help you that that you are using right now?
The
anything
tool that is the most
tool
useful
for your work, for not the thing you are the tool or the item or the stuff you are using right now that most help you to travel and to live.
The first thing that comes to my mind is I have a daily yoga practice, which
nice.
I've been doing for about 10 years. I actually feel kind of lucky because I had a father who had a daily yoga practice and who counseled me.
That's cool.
He always said by the time you're 30 years old, you should be doing yoga every day because it's going to preserve your body and your energy into old age, and you're not going to end up with a third leg with a cane.
So yoga practice definitely.
And so when I was 30, I took his advice and I started a daily yoga practice. And that's one of the things, even if you're traveling or if you're at home, but if you're in extreme environments, moving a lot from place to place, being able to always have that.
How long?
How long yoga every day? I do anywhere from the shortest will be 20 minutes to an hour. So I try to get a solid at least half hour, 45 minutes a day, every morning or every time I wake up, which is always the morning, depending on the time zone,
the time and the city.
But absolutely starting the day with the yoga practice. I think it's one of the most beneficial things.
What's the thing when you travel, you have to take with you? Apart from the computers.
The computer, right? The computer.
And the weirdest thing.
What's that?
The weirdest thing that you travel with that you have to travel with this.
I have to travel.
And it's weird.
I always bring, I don't know how weird it is, but I always bring some Palo Santo with me, which is it's like a type of wood that's a very sweet smelling type of wood. And you can burn it. I guess it's similar to incense or something. Maybe your viewers Palo Santo will recognize it. Your podcast listeners. And I always bring that with me because it brings a sense of wherever you are, you can kind of create home through an atmosphere of a scent that's nice. Familiar. Yeah.
And also, what's the book that has traveled with you almost anywhere or the longest?
A book that I don't know how I pick books up, and then when we were traveling last year,
or then I dropped your
them
favorite,
off.
Yeah?
But I recently, I actually I can recommend Homo Deus, an interesting book by Yuval Noah Harari, who's an Israeli Oxford actually trained historian, and he wrote a couple books within the last few years. Sapiens, a brief history of humankind, and then Homo Deus, a brief history of tomorrow. I thought he has some really interesting perspectives and frames on where we've been coming, as a species, how we got to where we are, and sort of what the future may look like, and the interface between humans and technology, and how and what type of society we want, really to forge and create. Homo Deus.
And Julian, what's for you your best skill?
You tell me.
You tell me.
I don't know.
For you, what's the number one skill for anyone, or what should be for anyone who wants to live the life you live in?
I may have already said this, but I really think that the good things that have come in life that you can look back and that you've produced have always come with hard work and with discipline, because things don't just materialize overnight. Ideas don't materialize overnight. Building a community center takes 10 years. Passing the California bar exam takes a lot of discipline, and providing quality services for your clients, if you want to do that from doing it remotely, it takes discipline. And so I really think developing a skill or a discipline, developing the skill of discipline, the yoga practice that I do every day, I never miss a day. And that makes me
Discipline.
Feel like I'm on my game. It feels like I feel healthy because of that. And so I really think that that's the one thing that you can develop, I think, for whatever pursuit that you're after. Know that with discipline, that's how you're going to achieve it.
Julian, what will be your message for anyone that is listening to your podcast and wants to live a good life?
Dream the life and then live the dream.
Julian Davis, thank you for being here. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing with you your experience and your story. And I'm so happy and blessed also to have the chance to meet you, like sharing with you some pieces of life, some moments, some time, and learning from you. Thank you so much, and being blessed.
Thank you so much for having me, Isra.
Thank
really
you.
Nice to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you so
Cheers.
much. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening Julian Davis on Disrupt Everything podcast series. This is Isra Garcia, and you've been disrupted. And also, you can follow Julian Davis on juliandavislaw.com, where you will find all his info. Also, you can find him on Instagram, and you can find him also on LinkedIn and Julian Davis, and also you can find it in Facebook. That's it. See ya on the next episode.
Esto ha sido Disrupt Everything by Isra García. Encuentra el riesgo antes de que el riesgo te encuentre a ti.